I just want to say, thank you for everything. I know, like you said, it comes to you, right? It chose you. It found you, and you're like, I love this. Boom. So appreciate everything. It's awesome. So my thing, back home, I'm trying to get like the energy companies into looking into having Bitcoin as the alternative, but they just don't get it like at all. You can talk numbers to them, like, and they're big number guys in the energy sector. So I don't know. I guess what would you say to be able to talk with people like that? I'm sure you've talked with a bunch.
The energy companies are very aware of the waste that they have. So being able to talk about how Bitcoin mining can consume that waste, monetize that waste, I have found from skeptics in finance take a little bit longer to, or like skeptics in tech and like Silicon Valley and stuff, it just takes a little bit more. But skeptics in the energy space that I've spoken with, they're the fastest to turn because they're very aware of the problems that they have in their system. They're aware of the waste. They're aware that they're reaching capacity. So those problems you don't have to tell them because they are aware. And so you just need to tell them that you have a technology that can respond to that problem and can monetize it. And then, maybe start with data centers. Maybe don't just come off the bat with like Bitcoin, and you can be like, so there's these computers and you can talk about, these data center computers but what's it really like a key difference between why I say you should say it's Bitcoin mining is that data centers, you can't turn them off. You have compute going on, you can't turn that off. There are like so many redundancies that data centers have to make sure that they are completely online, up 24/7. And a Bitcoin miner, obviously that's not the case. And Bitcoin miner doesn't need to be connected to the internet grid, the global cables. Bitcoin miner doesn't need huge bandwidth either. So even though they're very similar, the places where they differ is actually even more beneficial to these energy companies because it can happen anywhere. So yeah, so I would say start with the problem, very typical sales. Start with the problem and tell them you have a solution.
Yeah, I'm curious about if you've seen anything change in the landscape, like since you've made the film or when it came out, and to now, and like in terms of like the actual mining industry, regulatory, or even like public perception or whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have a president talking about Bitcoin when I was making it. So yes, so already things have changed in that regard. In the mining space, a lot of energy companies, again, they are aware of the problem. A lot of countries also know that they're sitting on incredible natural resources like hydroelectric. As a lot of industries have left, so they have the grid infrastructure for a manufacturing, society, like load, but then that load has left and it has gone to, overseas, particularly to China. So you have, the word is spreading very quickly, actually thanks to a lot of people in Texas and in this room, that they're putting on great conferences. You have the Empower guys in Houston as well, they're doing a great job with that. So word is not so slowly spreading, but I think it's going to take more risk takers to kind of take that on. Also, it's not easy in terms of knowing where to start. And I have also spoken with people, they were like, yeah, I thought Bitcoin mining was awesome, and then I got ripped off, and then there's a lot of scammers online as well. So and I just recommend people go to the conferences, meet people, and even you gotta do due diligence. Yeah, because you don't just say, I wanna start mining Bitcoin, and then you just plug in 2 megawatts. It takes so much to do that. You need professionals, you need people that can really help you do that. Otherwise, you can waste a lot of money and end up kind of like not wanting to touch it. So I do think that it's not just an easy solution. Yeah. Does that?
Yeah, and also just as a quick follow-up, curious like if you've noticed like the industry, the mining industry evolve anyway technologically, or just like even the energy industry itself.
Yeah. So when I started in 21. Bitcoin started declining very quickly, started going down. And we entered this bear market that some people say we're out of. I don't know, I And a lot of the miners that I was speaking with, a lot of them turned off their machines, a lot of them went bankrupt. Some of the hosters that were more keen on talking with me because they were more public facing, they cared more about what people thought about them. They started also closing up shop. So I was like, all right, all my contacts are drying up, but hash rate is going up. So there's still a story here, but it's probably not the story that, you know, I'm like, there was just all of this turmoil going on 21 and 22. Pegapool that you see there is currently also out of business. So there are definitely changes there, a lot more energy folks than before. And the nerdy miners that started that way have kind of been forced to become energy folks now. So yeah, energy literacy going up, a lot more people that are concerned about centralized mining and they want to more off-grid as well. You know, as people find out about it, they're just, I believe that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to want to get Bitcoin at a discount. You know, that's kind of what they think when they think that they're going to start mining. But again, the logistics, I think that the best business people are the ones that have survived. If you're not a good business person, you're probably not going to be mining Bitcoin for a long time. Burn up your cash and go out of business. Any other questions?
Yes. De Vries, the Dutch central banker that you also interviewed, I was wondering, is that his own thought, or was he pushed by the Dutch central bank to create that report? And also, does he believe in what he says, or is he only doing it to climb up the career ladder in the central bank?
Well, I can't speak to why, but I can say that he is a smart man, and he sticks to his script. And I've been doing documentaries for a long time and asking people questions in ways that kind of elicits an answer or a reaction that I'm kind of looking for, but obviously I don't put words in people's mouths. But I kind of hit it on different angles with him, trying to get like a different thing. And I also trained executives, or I was in the room while executives were being trained, and you stick to your talking points no matter what, and that's actually really hard to do. You have to be extremely well trained for a reporter or somebody to ask you a question out of left field and you not answer it. You be like, it's actually, like for me, it's almost impossible. I just want to answer your question, you know? But he was so good at sticking to his talking points, and again, because I am so familiar with that executive training, that I was like, this person is extremely well trained, and he has his script that, and it felt a little unauthentic just from my perspective, speaking with him. But I don't know why, but yes, he does work for the central bank, and yeah, and that's what I'll say. I do believe that his answers at many points were not his real authentic answers, but more, I'll take this opportunity to tell you, you know, my talking points. And so that's,
Hello, thank you so much for coming and showing the film. Just for your FYI, I first heard about it when I was in Prospera in Honduras. I don't know if you were there for that screening, but there were some people there that absolutely loved it. And I remember going on YouTube and Googling, and I wanted to see it so badly, so I was meant to see it here, and I'm thrilled. But what about those who aren't here and want to see it? Where are you distributing? Do you have a plan?
yeah,
And I want to watch it again, so.
And please watch it again. We had a little bit of audio issues today, all that. And I was in the back like, to breathe through all of this right now. And it was fine, it was still fine. I'm fine. So Kinema is currently how we're doing. We're seeking wider distribution. Bitcoin is an interesting subject, and it's not even people in the Web3 or Film 3 space want to touch it. And I kind of Trojan horse it in because it's dirty coin, and it's like, oh yeah, because Bitcoin sucks, right? And then they send me a screener, and then they see the screener, and then they don't call me back. And so whatever. So I decided that I am an independent filmmaker, so I'm going to independently distribute it as well. And right now it's on Kinema, and people can rent it online. And people can also host their own screenings, and that's what a lot of Bitcoiners are doing. And they pay for the individual license of the screening. They can sell tickets, they can get sponsors, they can make money off the screening. And it's happening. We have screened in Thailand, we have screened so many countries we have screened in. And it's Bitcoiners. Bitcoiners tend to be like leaders. And so whenever they like something, they're like, oh, yes. And so thankfully, I have all of these unofficial leaders around the world that are helping spread the film. And in the meantime, I'm still going to markets, and I'm just going to start hitting different markets as well, because a lot of these liberal, I don't know if you went to South by and you saw kind of the content that's being played, and if you don't abide by the particular agenda, you're just not included. And then people think, well, all filmmakers these days are making movies about X. And it's like, no, it's just that the programmers are only picking movies of X. There's a lot of filmmakers making extremely great films. And so, like Anthem, the Anthem Festival is coming up, and I'm just gonna ditch all that mainstream crap and really go for the signal and focus on the people that really wanna watch something new, not just kind of the same stuff. I'm just tired of watching people getting raped, tired of there's the gay stuff. It's like, I'm for freedom, do whatever the fuck you want, but why does it all have to be, is this the gay festival? Like, why is everybody gay? You know, it's like, my goodness. And so I'm sorry, South by this week, so I'm a little bit like, what the hell? But you look at the programmers and you look at the people and you look at the speakers, and it's all just like this, like, counterculture has become mainstream, and now I'm counterculture for saying things that I'm saying, which are conservative for some folks. So I'm not giving up. We're still seeking wider distribution. We are online. We're cash flowing. We are renting daily. We get 1 to 2 to 10 rentals a day. So we are, and I'm already paying back our debts and our investors. So with that cash flow, so we're doing it. We're doing it. But we're still seeking wider distribution. So I'm not closing myself off to these bigger networks yet. Kinema. So that's a new independent site. And actually, if you have the internet there, you can probably bring it up and I can send you the text. Oh, no, this is going to derail me. No, I'm not going to do it. Never mind. I'll send you guys all the text. And yeah, it's on Kinema. You can watch it. You can gift it to your friends and family.
Question?
That's interesting, first off, because I hadn't thought about anybody in the Bitcoin space trying to monetize their video production effort. Because, thank God for Bitcoin and it looks like they just, because Bitcoin doesn't, pay, right? It's mostly volunteer, just like Bitcoin Commons Park. It's hard, right? You need old school Bitcoiners to contribute. So actually making a film and then trying to get money for it, that's a whole nother challenge I'd never thought of. My question, because we were sitting here talking a little bit about how this is like one of the FUD points, right? From 2020, 2021, 2022, the energy consumption along with multiple other misinformation and FUD points about Bitcoin. You've solved one, but over that same 3-year period, by the time you got the movie made, I found that this is less of an issue now because of the sort of the ESG, and Larry, whatever his name is, backing off of the ESG initiative, and some of the, it just doesn't seem like as big detractor for people anymore when I talk to them about Bitcoin, but you've been talking to people the whole way, so I'm just curious if you've seen some of this dying on its own over the same period of time. Now, obviously, when people still come with this misperception, they're gonna find your film, which is awesome, because now they get the history and now the real education and the right facts and can go down the rabbit hole from here. But I just wondered if you've seen this not be as big an issue in your investigative journey over the last 3 years.
It depends on the location. So, and it's interesting, the more compliant people were during their lockdowns, those countries and states, they're still very much on the ESG narrative as well. So it's really sad how people are just such a reflection of their media and whoever is controlling their media. So being here in Texas, you have more freedom-minded folks, and you have a lot of people that are just kind of fed up with the programming. So I do think that the narrative is for sure changing. But this but I've even spoken with Bitcoiners that didn't know about a lot of the case studies that are in the documentary. So I think that there's also a value that can be brought to the people that already know. But yeah, I do think that it's not going to continue to be as much of a FUD piece because there's a lot of kings and queens, more kings that are dominating things. And right now, energy is pro this. Big energy is pro this. And they're going to help turn the narrative as well. And they have the money to do so because it aligns with them. So I do think that there's going to be bigger media push, public relations push that Bitcoin mining is good. It'll just, I don't know, I think it's honestly a little too early to call. And the people that are making their own investigations, they're going to find the truth. But the people that are kind of waiting for what the media tells them to think, they're going to be like, I feel sorry for them because they're just going to be like, it's good, it's bad, it's good, it's bad. Because it kind of depends on, which press release goes out. So I feel very sorry for those folks. But yes, I do see that there are a lot of big players that are getting in massively, and they're not being too public about it yet. I think they just want to plug in and make sure they're hashing before they talk about it. Yeah, so it's going to change for sure.
I have a question actually, so
And you
before I
have the
pass it over
mic,
to you
so
guys.
go ahead.
And this is kind of related to your question. I think part of also the reason why that narrative has shifted is because of people like yourself and Bitcoiners who have made the rational, based in reality, based in physics arguments that this is good and the incentives are aligned. I'm curious if you've thought about or have heard other potential filmmakers or creators on what other FUD points that maybe in the Bitcoin maximalist culture we realize is FUD, but the broader population doesn't yet, and we just need to create those films, documentaries, whatever it is, to flip them to our side.
You can't use Bitcoin isn't money. That's a FUD point. You can't use Bitcoin to buy anything. So I think there are a few filmmakers that are working on like circular economies. They're working on, to your point, a lot of them are just going straight to YouTube. And I built my career on YouTube, and I was just so fed up. And I have almost 1 billion views across all my work on YouTube. So I know YouTube. Well, they do change the algorithm very frequently. So, maybe what I knew 4 years ago isn't the same today. But unfortunately, there's a lot of signal in this space, but it's not getting the push that it needs to really kind of beat the algorithms. And that's one of the things that I would like to do as an executive producer is work with more of these Bitcoin filmmakers that have extremely great ideas, but they're just like, value for value, I'm gonna put up my QR code. And you know how many times I've done that? And it's like, I would have never been able to pay for this film, and I would never, and that's fine. And not everybody wants to part with their Bitcoin, but why don't we just make fiat, we can do it. We are talking about things that people are interested in, and there are ways to do it, and there are ways to penetrate the mainstream. And if it's not profitable, you're not going to do it for a long time. Passion projects. I did a bunch of passion projects while I still had my job, and I didn't have a business plan for my passion projects. And you can check them out on Vimeo and YouTube and win some awards, and that's cool. But ultimately, I still needed a job. So if I want to make this the thing that I'm going to devote my life to, it needs to make money. And I want more filmmakers to come up with me and just make great, incredible films that, again, really ensure that we have a free future. Right? So I would say in terms of Bitcoin specifically, you can't use Bitcoin as money. Yeah. It's not money.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's two. He, I don't know, I think wait, put up his hand first, so I just want to speak up for him. Yeah.
Thank you for your work in putting together a beautifully crafted story with many layers to it. And as a 3-year project, so it's a 2-part question. Did you anticipate it taking 3 years when you set out, when you began? And then how did you see your thinking evolve? Or what was the biggest change in your thinking through the process of
putting the film together?
Okay, I'm still going through that change. I didn't expect it to take 3 years, but I did want it to take at least 2. Because I was doing corporate film or client stuff, I had to make it quick. So it's, you got to make that money work, and clients only have X amount of budget. So I would film like a whole documentary in a week. And the problem with that is that you don't really let things mature. It's like, oh, look at this great new thing. It's gonna be so awesome. You see, guys, everybody, oh, yay! And then like 6 months later, there's no support. It falls apart. Nobody's there. Nobody's using it. And so that to me was like, I knew that with this, I couldn't just go and like interview a bunch of bullish people and then, half of them were gonna go out of business in 6 months. So I knew I wanted to like take my time with this one. So I was aiming for 2 years. It ended up being 3 because of the fundraising effort was just super slow. I did call my documentary Dirty Coin, and I was mostly raising it from Bitcoiners. So I understand the apprehension. I kind of just made a hard thing even harder. And in terms of what changed me, so electricity is super important. I was super bullish on energy, and I still am, right? But in the places that I went that they didn't have the same access to electricity as us, I come in like a savior, like, yeah, we're helping you guys because you guys don't have electricity, and we're gonna help you, and you're gonna be so much better off instead of like playing outside and talking and playing with cards and farming your own food. And so then that kind of started like, look at these healthy kids, look at these happy people. And I specifically made a point to put that they were watching the news at night. And it's like, oh. So there were certain parts and certain moments where I kind of felt like, are we better off? So, but there's no turning back the clock. I'm not gonna like become a, what do you call the Amish? And I could. They seem to be doing pretty well, but as I said earlier, I'm not really a conservative. I do like to party and hang out. I just like my freedom. But yeah, so I would say that that's kind of a process that I'm going through. Is how are we better off? What is better off? What's the end goal here? Is it happiness? Is it money? Is it I kind of go back to freedom. I like having enough money that I can move out of I could move out of California because I had the money, There are a lot of people that wanted to leave and couldn't leave. So I do think that money does offer you the opportunity to be more free, but that's not the end goal. The end goal is the freedom, at least for somebody like me. So yeah, I guess that's kind of the process that I'm still going through, is what is better off.
Thank you. That point, it was very poignant in the film as well, that the simplicity of their lives and what was the complexity that was being introduced through access to energy. So thank you for articulating that.
Thank you for the question.
How are we doing on time? I think we have a few more questions.
Good.
Good? Awesome.
And people can start leaving as you get bored, please. Don't feel like, oh shit, I need to stay here until she finishes. If you're done, you can go.
Yeah, I heard you say that the big energy producers are going to be interested in Bitcoin and interested in changing the narrative, which totally makes sense. I was curious if you've thought about reaching out to any of them for funding, or because you basically have created a propaganda film for Bitcoin, which is like fantastic. Good job. It sends the ethical message that is lost oftentimes. So we needed that angle. We talk about NGU and finance a lot, but not about the real life impact. So yeah, that was the question at the beginning there.
Thank you. No, I finished raising to finish the film, and then I've now looked at the market. This is a long answer. The answer is not yet. How about that? Now for marketing, I'd like to do more co-productions with those companies, but I also need to be very careful about who I align myself with as well. Because some of these guys are not necessarily like the good guys either. And I don't want to be their useful idiot that they're going to, use while they need it. So Yeah, so no, but maybe. It just kind of depends on who I see. But this whole thing, I don't want to work with anybody for the rest of my life that I don't respect and that I don't want to, like, that I don't want to create something with. Because I'll go to the end of the world with you, but I need to know that you're going to go to the end of the world with me as well. And so I feel like some of these people, they just kind of want to use you for the, I don't know. As I said, it's a long answer, but we'll see. We'll see how things continue to move on.
I see your integrity. Thanks.
Thank you.
Two questions. One could perhaps be a sidebar, and then the second one may be more relevant. I'm born and raised in Los Angeles to immigrant parents, and my wife and I live there. And I'm entertainment industry adjacent because she's in the industry. So everything you're talking about, distribution, just learning from that. So do you see some more distribution channels that are out of the mainstream, like you're talking about, being built out, or is that really something that needs to be created, or does it need to actually just be funded? Like the rails are there, we just need to fund it more? That's kind of first question. Second one is just touching more on the energy poverty.
Wait, let's go with the first one.
Let's go with the first one.
Yeah.
Cool.
So right now there's a website called indiehub.com, pretty sure, Indie Hub, and it's a Bitcoin website, Bitcoin-enabled website, and you can decide to rent a film outright, paying with Bitcoin, or you can stream sats as you watch. So you just pay for as much as you watch. You don't like it anymore, you can. I know that they're looking for funding, and they're incredible guys. They're in LA. And Zach Mahoney is the CEO of that company, and him and his team, they're like Bitcoiners living in LA, so they understand how to be a Bitcoiner living in LA, which I'm sure you do as well. So those guys I know are looking for funding, and they're great guys. I've used their product with Stranded. We were stacking sats during the Bear with the short film that I released as a proof of concept. And Angel Studios, they're creating their own, and they're proving out that there is a market for that, but they have a different business model that doesn't necessarily, it benefits them, but not necessarily the filmmaker. So there's that. It's a little complicated. And sites like Kinema are like the one that I'm using is also a site that is also looking for funding. They're not Bitcoin yet, but the crypto folks are all over them. So I'm a little bit like, wait, talk to me first before you do anything. Make sure you talk to me, because I need to make sure that you do this right. And I have a good relationship with her now, the CEO. So I think that there are a lot of sites currently that are trying. It's a uphill battle, and it's super expensive to do. For a brief moment there, I thought that I would produce a product like that, and then I was like, okay, no. But there are some brave souls out there that are definitely fighting the good fight, and I would say Indie Hub would be the first one that I would highly recommend. All Bitcoiners in the group, and they built it first for Bitcoin, and then had to kind of integrate fiat as okay, fine. And they're in LA, so I'll connect you. And then your second question about energy poverty.
Oh, yeah. So I work for a global humanitarian organization called World Vision. We do about $3 billion in revenue per year, mostly private sector funded. We are 22% USAID funded, which I know in this room is not a great topic to talk about. But I wanted to ask, are any humanitarian orgs coming and seeing this? Are they talking to you? Because energy poverty is huge, as well as lack of access to clean water in the world, as well as microfinance, like in small increments, because most of the extreme poor in the world are subsistence farmers in rural areas. So are you having anyone from that sector talk to you, or is it just crickets? We're not the most innovative, I know, so.
Well, we just released in October 31st of last year. We premiered for 2024, and then we did festivals, and then I went to all these festivals, and people were like, you're never gonna make any money, it's never gonna sell, and I was like, fuck you. And then I went theatrical, and we did great. I mean, not like millions great, but we filled theaters, and that felt incredible. And so we're still, and I'm kind of like, I'm not a one-man band, but I do a lot. And there's only like so much that I can do. So my first thing was to get that wider distribution so we can get the film sold as quickly as possible so that we can, the money's there, I can move on to the next projects. We have a partner that's, handling the distribution. Because that hasn't happened, I've had to be that distributor, and I've been going to film markets, representing the movie myself, and doing all of that, and that just takes time and money. Because I wanted to kind of go top down, and I haven't had the time or the energy or the resources to kind of reach out to the rest of the world. I have spoken with some folks that I've met at different festivals that they get really excited, and I don't think that all of these organizations, just because you get money from USAID doesn't mean that you're bad. And again, a lot of these organizations, they're not bad or good, and a lot of the people that are working for them are definitely good. They're dedicating their lives to a purpose that they believe in. So I don't think it's going to be hard, and it's really just a matter of that's what I'm doing this year, is really getting the message out. And but those are kind of like two different targets, because one is like a lot of folks and one is a little bit more strategic, less folks. And because I only have so much time, I was just kind of focusing on those. And but also just expanding into other organizations. And so far they've the people that I've spoken with are reacting well. So I don't think it's going to be a negative. I don't think it's going to be hard at all. Other than the, contacting and the emailing and then, hey, and the follow-up and, that part. Thank you.
One other question. You mentioned that big energy companies are seeing the need or the benefit and will get behind it and that will help. I missed the first half. Did you talk to any like ERCOT, TVA, any like grid operator? Was that any part of the first half that I missed, or just do you have a perspective on, say, people make positive comments, but then people make comments where you think they might not see the full picture, but I'm just curious if there's a very clear grid stabilization piece that Bitcoin provides and is, something for grid operators, and, curious if they've engaged on it.
So the only grid operator that spoke with me that was willing to take an interview was the director of energy and heat of Finland. They're very pro Bitcoin right now. But I spoke with some ERCOT folks. They said that they wouldn't take an interview for the documentary. Lee tried to help me. So we definitely tried. But at the time, I couldn't get an interview, so I couldn't include it. We do have the grid operator of Malawi. So we talk about gridless, and we interviewed the grid operator in Malawi, and then we have an ex-Duke Energy guy in the movie as well, but he's ex-Duke. So I spoke with the people at Ande in Paraguay, off record, high ups, executives, and great folks, but they were like, we're barely telling people that we're working with Bitcoin. So I would say at the time, the energy companies were just a little afraid to discuss that. And so I wasn't able to get a lot of interviews from folks in that industry. Yeah.
On a positive note, the last couple of years, obviously with the regulatory framework and the new administration and stuff around Bitcoin, so all that stuff in the energy space where they're like, oh, I don't want to even be touched Bitcoin, at least some of that's gone away. I wanted to ask you real quick, because you're the first person I've ever met in person in the Bitcoin space who's talked a lot about value for value, streaming for sats, all that kind of Nostr related stuff. So I'm just curious, as somebody who might, because of the distribution of a movie, be interacting with Nostr, just your experience with it. Are you using it? What's going on with you and Nostr? Anything?
I'll tell you what's going on with me and Nostr. So I have Primal, and Primal works for, a couple things. So I was in the social media world for so long. That was the content that I was making. And then I saw how in 2020, it locked us in our house. It just locked us in our house. Like one text message locked us all in our homes. Bunch of actors dancing in their pajamas locked us in our homes. It's like, next time they better come with me with weapons, like what the hell? So I became extremely anti-social media after that. I stopped posting. I stopped I don't need to. And then my daughter at the time was 11 or 12, and she's like, my goodness, millennials are just oversharing like all the fucking pictures. Did you even ask me if I wanted to put that picture of myself on the internet? And I just really, I was like, oh my God, this is right. Why do I need to post this stuff? I don't need to post this stuff. I don't need the world to see my kids. It's actually a security risk, you know? And so there were just, I just went through like a huge kind of, I think all of us, right? 2020 was intense and I was in California, so I was like, so then Twitter, I started using Twitter really because of Dirty Coin, because I knew that I needed to be able to create a community around the film before the film came out. I knew that Bitcoiners were on Twitter, and I was like, fuck it, I'll use Twitter. Now I like it better. I go through phases. I just don't do a lot of social media. So when Nostr came out, I was like, well, I don't need another fucking place to post. And so, but I got Primal for myself because I do like it, and I like the people that I follow on there, and Primal loads really well, but then I have the Dirty Coin account on Damus, whatever, and it never loads. And it's like, I have a huge, huge problem. Like, look, I can't, nothing. Okay, then that's what I'll do, because Primal works, like, it just works, right? But Damus, it's not working, and that happens to be the one that I have connected to Dirty Coin account, and so that's why I'm kind of like locked. But thank you for, I'll look into that, because I just thought that I couldn't do it.
So your movie itself on there, is it like available to stream per, sats per minute or second, or is it like?
We will be on Indie Hub soon, yeah. Zach just asked me to hold off while they're fixing some bugs on their end, because we're gonna like push it together. So yeah, we'll be on that one, and then people can, but right now on Geyser, if you go on Geyser, you can rent it with Bitcoin, and then I send you a link and you can rent it out. So you can also rent it with Bitcoin. Yeah. Any other questions? You can also find me. I have no plans today, so I'm just gonna chill and hang out, so. Okay, maybe I'm saying the wrong word, so let me just look that up after. INDEE, yeah. So, well, because they're trying to not make it super Bitcoin. Yeah, it is INDEE Hub, and they're pretty new. Like they're pretty new. I saw them at a pitch competition for Bitcoin companies. Oh, there you go. Thank you, Parker.
I actually have one more question, maybe final question. If not, we can have other questions if people have. But I'm curious, there's been a lot of talk over the last few weeks and months and years about CBDCs. And I'm interested in, when going to like Malawi and these kind of impoverished and developing nations and providing them the energy through Bitcoin mining, how has that education also been pushed forward with providing them the financial freedom of Bitcoin? Like, are those Bitcoin miners in the space, they're granting them the energy, but not necessarily the currency? And do you imagine that a potential barrier of increasing the energy availability to these villages and towns and cities being disrupted because the governments are saying we would rather control the money supply, and we are pushing off a CBDC on these people, so we're just not going to allow Bitcoin, even though it might help them from the daily life perspective, but not the financial perspective?
Well, if El Salvador can teach us anything, is that it's not just the government. There's layers on top, of the government. So you can have the best intentions in the world, and the IMF can tell you to fuck off. So I think that, yeah, absolutely, we're going to see that. You did mention that, or like the first part, that miners aren't orange pilling the people around. It's 100% true. I went to a bunch of different places, and they're definitely not talking about to the people. And there's a few reasons for that. There are exceptions, of course. Penguin has, in Paraguay, they have courses to get people, like tech courses, and they discuss Bitcoin. But a lot of them just want to function in a stealthy way, you know? So that they can continue to do their work. So I also see that part of them not wanting to be so bullish on Bitcoin that then they're like, hey, we're here, we're mining, and and it's like, what the fuck, you know? And that actually just alerts the government or the IMF or the banks or whatever, just it kind of lets them know we're here. So I understand their perspective as well, but I don't see a lot of orange pilling coming from the miners in those particular areas. So I don't think that it's going to be the Bitcoin adoption that miners bring, because I don't think that the miners are actually bringing that Bitcoin adoption.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I have two people here. I think that we're good. You can contact me for more questions, but I do want to bring Matt and Brittany up because I'll introduce them or have them introduce yourselves. I don't know. I think you should probably introduce yourself. Hey, thank you for coming. Yes.
Hi guys, and thank you for letting us join the end of this Q&A. So happy to be here.
I'm happy that you're here.
So happy that you got to do a screening in Austin. Hi everyone, my name is Brittany Kaiser. I have been in Bitcoin since 2011 when I started mining, and more recently I started a NASDAQ-listed Bitcoin miner in 2020, Griffin Digital Mining, and we started as the first 100% renewable Bitcoin mining company. So we do a lot with hydroelectric and nuclear energy, and then a lot with carbon sequestration and carbon removal on our non-renewable sites. And I helped create the first third-party Bitcoin mining sustainability certificate with BlackRock, RMI, and a group called Energy Web, which is a lot of former energy executives that came and started a nonprofit to help prove the decarbonization of the Bitcoin network. And our sustainable Bitcoin mining certificate, any Bitcoin miner can receive by providing enough of their data from where they are purchasing their ASIC miners, the delivery of those miners, like air freight, boats, whatever it happens to be, and the emissions from those, to where they're plugged in and the energy mix of where they're using them, to how those machines are retired. So I do a lot of work in the Bitcoin energy space, but yeah, happy to be here.
I'm Matt McKibben. I'm her other half. But I've been involved in Bitcoin since 2012, 2013. I was running the Washington, D.C. Bitcoin meetup and investing in a lot of the early token sales, part of the Bid Angels, if you know, like Michael Turpin, David Johnston, who's based here in Austin. So investing in the early token sales. And then in the Bitcoin space specifically, I've been in the space. I've run an early stage investment advisory firm called Decentranet, and I'm a GP at a fund of funds in the space called Hyla Funds. But in 2018, we were thinking about the future of what Bitcoin was going to be able to do, and we wrote an article called Satoshi Second Gift. It's up on Medium/crypto, and it basically predicts that as sustainable energies become cheaper and the Bitcoin price goes up, Bitcoin will become the greatest incentivization mechanism for the construction of sustainable energy resources on the planet.
You were right.
Right, we were right. But specifically, like when she came to me and was like, "Hey, I'm doing this dirty coin," I was like, "Yes, this is absolutely correct. Like, I can't wait for this documentary to come out because it proves the case for this thesis of it being the ability to construct sustainable energy resources." And one of the things that I also got to be privy to, one of the guys from the UAE who studied nuclear engineering at Penn State, he's connected to the royal families there, and he actually ended up constructing some of the nuclear energy plants in the UAE. He brought the technology back. He specifically came to Texas because the energy grid patterns are very similar in terms of like the amount of energy needed in the peak season in the summer is huge, really, really high, and then the rest of the year it's at like 40% capacity, right? and was studied it, and now they're mining Bitcoins with the excess capacity basically in the UAE. And so that moment of like, all right, this is the economic model that can help construct energy in places that they don't have it yet was really cool. So anyway, that's our story.
Well, thank you guys for introducing yourself. That's perfect. I like to bring miners on when I do, or people in the industry when I do these Q&As, because some of the questions that you guys ask me, I have my perspective, but miners, and especially publicly listed Bitcoin mining companies, they'll be able to kind of give you their perspective as well. So Brittany, I'm gonna ask you a question that was asked to me. How do you see the FUD narrative around Bitcoin mining changing? Is it changing? What are you witnessing?
Well, I think obviously with the focus on promoting Bitcoin and blockchain technologies and supporting entrepreneurship for the good of the American economy, that stance that this current administration has taken, I think there's a lot less coverage. Definitely under the last administration, they were very focused on trying to stop crypto entrepreneurship in the United States, which obviously just drove it abroad. It didn't stop anyone that wanted to build in crypto from building anything. You just couldn't register your company in America. And so therefore a lot of disinformation was coming out. There's a lot of different reasons for that, but it was very highly coordinated amongst a large group of interest groups, from the energy industry to, you know, lobbying groups that were anti-Bitcoin and anti-crypto in general. Not a lot of it was based on fact, and unfortunately was very much blown out of proportion. You constantly heard all of these insane quotes like, "Oh, Bitcoin mining is using as much energy as, like, name your favorite country," and it's like, okay, well, let's look at what energy usage it actually takes to, like, move paper dollars to ATM machines. Can we talk about that if we're going to start making weird comparisons? It's not based on facts. So that's why we started the Sustainable Bitcoin Protocol, which became this third-party certificate that I mentioned earlier, with a lot of the top kind of auditing firms and asset managers in the world, because at the time when we started working on this in early 2021, there was no institutional investment in Bitcoin or Bitcoin touching companies basically at all. And BlackRock's opinion was that because more than 70% of their funds under management are ESG mandated, that they would not be able to invest into Bitcoin companies or Bitcoin touching companies until they could prove that, kind of one of the things that Elon Musk was asking for as well for Tesla to reinvest in Bitcoin, was to see that at least 50% of the Bitcoin network would be renewable or sustainable in some kind of way and have provable data for that. So that's why we started the Sustainable Bitcoin Mining Certificate, to start taking all of the world's biggest miners that held a huge percentage of the Bitcoin network in terms of daily processing and hashing power, to go through that certification process. And so we've taken quite a few of the world's largest miners through that. That represents a large portion of the processing of the Bitcoin network. And now we actually have the data to prove that the network overall could be considered ESG mandated. And last June, we released the protocol, and it was only a couple months later when BlackRock actually started actively advising their portfolio holdings to go forward with Bitcoin investments. So it's taken a lot to actually have the correct data, and now we're in a place where there actually is enough data to prove that Bitcoin processing on a whole is sustainable. And yeah, of course, there are examples where people are not thoughtfully using energy resources, or perhaps using fossil fuels in a place where that is not offset, and that's every individual company's decision on how they run their business, of course. But there's a lot of government incentives to run things sustainably, and whether or not it's, you know, carbon neutral or even carbon negative, that you're doing more for the environment than you are expressing in terms of emitting carbon. There's a lot of different ways you can run your business, but a lot of people in the Bitcoin space are running their businesses close to carbon neutral, or even carbon negative, like we are.
Awesome. I'm going to ask Matt one more question, and if there's any questions from the group, you can take it from there. So she mentions investment, and I know you work with a lot of investors. How are you seeing a change into wanting to invest more in mining? Is there an appetite for investors right now to invest more in mining?
For mining, not that I'm seeing in general. Mining has been something, a lot of the miners have been challenged since the halvening, which kind of always happens. Every halvening is because their revenues cut in half, right? And so the ones that survive are the ones that have, Bitcoin at a low enough rate, 15, I think Griffin was at 15K, where they're producing Bitcoin at a low enough rate where they can survive the halvening, or a lot of them now are actually moving into AI compute processing, and so there's like hybrid models where they're starting as Bitcoin mining and then they're doing some AI compute, since there's a lot of similarities in the data centers that need to be built there. And yeah, I don't know what the future of that is. I think the power companies in general are going to be, you've said this in the film, and in general, the power companies are going to be the ones that M&A basically all the Bitcoin mining things, because it's a useful utility to load balance and all of the things, and then the construction of new stranded energy resources with Bitcoin mining and AI compute, just data processing in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw a lot of bullishness of investors wanting to invest in mining, and now I'm seeing them more just like, I'll just buy the Bitcoin. So I'm kind of seeing like
just buying the Bitcoin. Like I built my first miner in 2013, and like right before the ASICs came out, and like the advice of everyone that was in the industry for like a long time was just buy the Bitcoin, and I was like, no, I have free power, like I can build these GPUs, I'm gonna do this, and I do it, and I mine like 1 Bitcoin maybe. And then I spent like a couple grand on the computer, and if I had just bought the Bitcoins, I'd have hundreds of Bitcoins, right? So it was just buy the Bitcoins, and then, there are some funds now, like where I'm at a fund of fund that has a Bitcoin share class, and so you can, last year I think it made 15%, so like buying the Bitcoins and then putting them into something that's like safe, diversified, like Bitcoin share class of something is like the best way to get more Bitcoin on your Bitcoin, in the sense I've seen nothing where you're like investing in a brand new Bitcoin mining thing that's gonna get you more Bitcoin over time than purchasing it in general. Yeah.
So that seems to be spending. Are there any questions from the crowd for them?
But you married somebody who owns a public Bitcoin mining.
We're not only Bitcoin mining anymore, we are going into very large scale AI processing.
I was there when she co-founded it and now is on the board, and
Most Bitcoin mining companies are diversifying into AI. It's good to be able to do both, and usually when you are doing large scale energy developments, you have plenty of space to build out data centers that are for AI and data centers that are for Bitcoin mining. You can't put them both in the same data center. They need completely different constructions inside. But if you are at a power station, you can obviously create multiple different constructions on the land. Also, in general, like a lot of people that have a Bitcoin mining company are really becoming more of a power company. When you start to become vertically integrated like we are, we're buying land, we're buying mineral rights, we're building out large-scale energy developments that are multi-gigawatts. And so yes, some of that will be used for Bitcoin mining, and some of that will be used for large-scale AI processing. And so, both make sense. Obviously, if you are a hardcore long-term Bitcoin holder, like you're going to want to make as much Bitcoin as you possibly can while building out large-scale energy resources. But in the short term, what is going to make you the most bang for your bucket is actually AI processing. But we all know that the more Bitcoin you can possibly hold and keep on your books over time, for people that are bullish on Bitcoin like myself, and I have been for 14 years, it's going to keep going up over cycles. So make as much Bitcoin as you can and finance your business with AI, which is the easiest way to get investment dollars these days.
I guess I have one last question if nobody else does. Sure. As a Bitcoin miner, when you get the Bitcoin, it's like virgin Bitcoin, right? Non-KYC. As a public miner, I imagine it might be different, but like, what is the process? Like, who's trying to buy that Bitcoin? Do you value it more? Are you able to keep it non-KYC? Does it immediately get KYC because it's coming from you and you're public, or at least, I guess there's a law that you have to report it or something?
No, not exactly. So basically, the way that all miners work is that you are you have a pool, right? And so we are adding hashing power to a pool. There are very few people who have their own pool because you would have to. It's a long and complex process. So we add hashing power to a pool, and then we are allocated our percentage of the Bitcoins that are coming out of that pool afterwards. So it's traceable that it came from that particular wallet, but no, we don't have to report our wallet address or which Bitcoins are getting to us and how. We obviously publicly report how many we are mining, and we are audited and reporting on a quarterly basis. So we say how many we are, but we don't have to publish our public wallet address, and I hope that no one would ever have to. It just makes you a hacking target, so yeah.
So what do you end up doing with it? Do you try to keep that non-KYC, or do you end up selling it to
Yeah, so we are KYC'd with an institutional custodian. So eventually, like obviously, we are KYC'd with that custodian. They're holding it on our behalf. Sometimes when we're doing larger scale developments, we sell some of it. Otherwise, we also are one of Michael Saylor's top 60 HODL companies and keep as much of it on our books as possible. So yeah.
Question?
What are some of the challenges you guys are facing with making it into an AI site, or making it more appeasing to get some additional revenue from the AI data center companies?
Well, I wouldn't particularly call this a challenge, but it's kind of a business strategy decision, which is either do you sell your entire capacity to one of the big boys, or do you open it up for SMEs, which is much more manual labor on like the customer acquisition side and the management and customer service side, as opposed to like selling your entire capacity to SpaceX, right? But you, in the long run, make less if you sell your entire capacity to one company. So that's kind of the business strategy decision. Do you spend more time on customer acquisition, customer management, customer service, or do you decide to sell out your entire capacity as a company that is building out large-scale energy resources, which makes it obviously a lot easier but less profitable. So I think that's the main business challenge of which way you want to go, because usually it will be one or the other. And it's a lot easier to finance large-scale developments if you pre-sell your capacity to actually pay for the construction and build out. So that's the main decision that a lot of people processing AI have to make. Like loads of customers or one customer, just a couple of the big ones. Yeah.
So do you guys see the miners eating the utilities, or the utilities eating the miners?
Utilities eating the miners.
Yeah, definitely. Fred Thiel, the CEO of Marathon, the largest publicly listed Bitcoin mining company, has been saying for years in his keynotes, either if you're a Bitcoin miner, either become an energy company or an energy company will buy you. It's one or the other. But in order for Bitcoin miners to survive as the halvenings continue to make the whole process less profitable, you must become a fully vertically integrated energy company. Yeah.
So going off of that, because you're talking about like the big miners and kind of the grids, right? But this week, I'm sure you saw that a BitX hit a block. It's the second one, I think, in the last like 8 months or so. So I'm curious your thoughts on solo mining, if there are anything that you see that's not even necessarily from a like we're going to mine so much Bitcoin perspective, but just from a like security of the network perspective on solo mining and things that can continue to progress there.
I mean, yeah, for security of the network, I highly recommend everyone that has the ability to do it. It's not going to be very profitable unless you are that one lucky guy that happens to beat all the large-scale Bitcoin miners and win an entire Bitcoin. You know, in general, like it's unlikely for it to be profitable at all unless you are somewhere that you have zero or negative energy costs, which obviously there are people that live in those situations. So if for some reason you have access to free energy, for sure, plug in some ASICs, but it's going to take you a little while to pay those ASICs back. In general, I believe that for the security of the network, it is very important for it to stay as decentralized as possible and not just be owned by a few giant energy companies, because that's unfortunately something that as someone that's been in the industry for a long time and really believes in the security of the Bitcoin network, I wouldn't want to see a few organizations being able to come together and change things about Bitcoin's functionality.
On solo mining, I do want to say, because I get asked that, and I say, how much money do you spend going out to dinner or something? You could just buy a BitX, you have it going, and it's like a lottery ticket that you buy, and it just kind of continues to participate, So yeah, don't count on it. It's not a business strategy, it's a lotto situation, but it's like you're buying one lotto ticket that kind of goes for every single time, every 10 minutes you have an opportunity to maybe.
The average American spends between $200 and $400 a year on just lottery tickets.
Yeah.
There you go. So yeah, so buy a BitX.
So yeah, you could.
You buy a BitX, set it up solo mine, and you're playing lottery every 10 minutes.
Right.
Yeah. And there are ones that, I don't know which ones, but they're ones that will go into a pool and give you a percentage too.
I have a Brains Mini, and it goes into a pool.
There's like pool heaters. There's a company here in Texas that's building a lot of the Web 5 infrastructure that Jack Dorsey coined the term, but they're building like private networks secured by the Bitcoin things. They're doing pool heater installation, so your pool, your hot tub can be heated by Bitcoin miners.
Actually, the Olympic swimming pool in Paris this past summer was heated by Bitcoin mining.
And so there's a greenhouse, I think in the documentary there was like looking at the excess heat coming off the miners and like making a greenhouse that's, warm for the whole year kind of thing. And so there's a lot of things you can do. I have to see what the name of that company is out here. They're doing custom builds for people that want it.
Actually, that was kind of my question. I read that if 6 million households mine Bitcoin and use the heating, for example, to heat their home, so you just use the heat as an excess product. If 6 million households do it, you'd be able to provide enough energy to the Bitcoin network. So I was wondering, do you think that is actually feasible, or that's just like a Bitcoiner dream that like in the future, mining will just become a part of also real estate infrastructure? So the excess heat is being used, or solar power on the roof is being used. In Germany, where you are forced to have solar, like how do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that it can become part of it. I don't know if it will be the thing that scales throughout all commercial real estate, but definitely in cold places that want to have that excess heat and they could use the excess heat in a meaningful way. Yeah, Germany's not very sunny, so I don't know why. Right, exactly.
You're forced by law to have solar on the roof, which is totally stupid because you have to. So now the question is, how do you make that profitable? And you can actually make it profitable by using some of the energy that you produce, which is between 5 and 15% of the day or the year, to mine Bitcoin, and then it kind of becomes profitable.
Use the heat in your house, the things that make sense. Yeah. Germany shut down their nuclear and sold their Bitcoin, so like they're going the opposite direction.
Sad.
Yeah.
They could use the Bitcoin mining to power the nuclear and have is what UAE is doing.
Just 2 questions, quick ones. The first one is approximately how much capital is stuck behind ESG earmarking or barriers? Number 2, what does the end-of-life devices look like, maybe domestically? What's that e-waste recycling process look like, or what is that process?
would say the ESG is changed drastically in the past 6 months, right? You may have a higher number, but I would imagine, I think the ESG requirements in a lot of ways have been changed with the fading of that being popular in a lot of ways. Like, I still think they want some sort of requirements, but with the new Trump administration, I don't think that that's actually what they're requiring on a lot of asset managers anymore. Still great to prove that Bitcoin is sustainable and not destroying the world. You might have more to say on that.
Yeah, I don't know that there's been any big asset managers that have said that they've changed any policy at all. The Department of Energy can change whatever policies they want. That doesn't mean the institutions are necessarily going to follow, because ESG was never a requirement. It was a personal decision for each company. So every company making their own decisions takes however long it takes. But I haven't seen any big announcements that anything's changed. Obviously, this administration might be giving less, I don't know, green energy credits than the last one. They haven't made that decision yet either. You know, we only just got a new head of the Department of Energy, so we'll see how that plays out.
And then, yeah, the end of waste. I mean, there's a lot of e-recycling stuff. I don't know. Well, it said that company is doing the Bitcoin mining, or the Bitcoin mining for pool heating. I'm blanking on the name of it, but there's also taking recycled or used hard drives and things to build these like private intranets, basically behind using the Bitcoin blockchain as a way of like a cost to access your network. With they have like a TV that they use. They have a private network, and so there is some of that being done there. But yeah, the bigger miners and the big companies are definitely going to do it in the proper way, because they're not going to be able to just throw e-waste away when they're regulated.
Yeah, at this point, we haven't sent any machines to recycling. We've sold them when they're no longer profitable for us. But one of our new developments is going to be, you know, less than 1 cent power. So a lot of our older machines, we will just send to the cheaper site and run those old machines for as long as we possibly can. And we fix and repair all of our machines, so we'll keep on running them like way past the general like 3 to 5 years that you would think you could get out of an ASIC, because we're repairing them and taking good care of them, and because we have cheaper sites to send them to where they are still profitable enough to run. And I think that's the main reason why a lot of big miners like retire machines. It doesn't mean that they're being thrown away or they're no longer going to be used to mine Bitcoin. They just need to go somewhere where they're still profitable, or go through a serious repair process and an update to the software in order to keep on having a lease of life.
Thank you. Super interesting, and the decision to take a company public is a huge undertaking, and obviously you get it right. It's a great way to generate more Bitcoin, but I get the feeling that it's far more than that, and it'd be really great to hear why you made that decision. And yeah, if you could speak to that, it'd be much appreciated.
Yeah, really to get access to public markets capital. It's a lot cheaper than lending or selling equity as a private equity company. So you can hold on to a lot more of your company, and you can get cheaper rates in order to do large-scale infrastructure development. So for us, it was really, if we're ever going to become vertically integrated and actually raise billions of dollars to spend and build out like multi-gigawatt centers, we have to be a public company to do that quickly enough, because we only founded this company at the end of 2020. So we went public as fast as you possibly can, which is at year 3. That's pretty much unheard of. And it was literally just to be able to access different types of funds, not just at a better rate, but funds that will only lend to publicly listed companies so that they have guaranteed liquidity.
The scale of capital and the cheapness of capital that you need to like truly scale a Bitcoin miner, you have to have like either sovereign money or public sector money in that sense.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions?
Just the last question. Last question, I promise. What's next for you? Do you have like, after you monetize this, is there a new either FUD topic or some other film you're planning on making?
I currently have a slate of projects that I'm developing, and I'm shopping those projects out to find co-producers that are going to help in any way, either with funds or with taking care of some part of the production. Taking a movie all the way to the end and then selling it is super risky, because if there's no market appetite for it, then you're kind of doing what I'm doing right now with Dirty Crime, which is figuring it out and, you know, making it go right. But, you know, being able to develop a slate and then greenlight the film that already has the interest, the minimum guarantees, the distribution, and the production is really the way to go. And so right now I'm developing that slate and just continuing to establish relationships. There are, in the slate, there's 4 films, 2 documentaries and 2 fictional films. One of them is called El Grid, and it's about what the Puerto Rican grid can teach the world about energy independence and sovereignty, why it's important. And so we're going to look at the Puerto Rican grid and then also parallels of other countries and what they have done to solve similar issues that we have in Puerto Rico. So it's meant for a global audience. And then the other one is about proving humanity online. How, as we move forward, we know things like WorldCoin, for example. I think you were in the chat, you're in the Morpheus chat group that I was talking with some folks about that. And there are some people that, you know, believe that you don't need to prove humanity. There are companies that definitely do need to prove humanity. Are you talking to a person? Or are you talking to a bot? And so I'm very interested in that and just exploring that. And again, I would take a couple of years, and I have a couple of companies that have been willing to just kind of open book themselves and what they're doing. Can't disclose who they are yet, but that would be the next project. It's you know, proof of human in a way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Especially with all the agent stuff coming.
Exactly. So and we want the agents. We're not going to stop that. But then how do we differentiate agent from human? And what does that mean? What are the implications of that? So those are the 2 documentary series that I currently have working, and then the other one is a horror, and then the other one is drama. So those are fictions. And all shot in Puerto Rico, or developed and produced in Puerto Rico. And we're actually, one of them, we're going to half shoot in Texas as well. So yeah, big, very exciting stuff. Thank you all for coming. I want to thank you, Brittany and Matt, for coming as well.
All right, thank you guys again. This was great. That pretty much wraps up Takeover Week at the park.